In the silent hours between 3 and 5 a.m., when the world around you is wrapped in stillness, a deeper reality begins to stir. It is a time when your soul becomes more sensitive, more open, more receptive to the truths that are usually drowned out by the noise of the day. When you are awakened in those sacred hours, it is not an accident, nor is it a disturbance without purpose. It is a call, a pull from the deeper currents of life inviting you to listen, to awaken, to remember something your spirit already knows. These early moments of dawn hold a power that has guided seekers, saints, and truth followers for centuries, because in that quiet pre-dawn light, the barriers between the material world and the spiritual world grow thin, and the voice of the divine becomes easier to hear. When your eyes open at that hour, you may notice that your mind is unusually clear, your heart strangely calm, as if something within you is trying to rise above ordinary consciousness. This is the moment when the soul tries to speak, when intuition becomes more alive, when the inner self attempts to draw your attention away from the worries you carry and guide you back to the center of your being. It is a sacred invitation to step into alignment, to reconnect with the source that breathes life into you. Many people think waking at this hour is simply stress or restlessness, but often it is the opposite. It is your spirit remembering that it is more than the body, more than the routine of daily living, more than the cycle of worry and sleep. During these hours you may feel thoughts arriving from a deeper place, insights emerging without force, clarity unfolding without effort. The divine often whispers when the world is quiet, because only then can you truly hear. You may be called to pray, to meditate, to reflect, or simply to sit in stillness and feel the presence that surrounds you. These moments awaken an inner strength that daytime distractions often bury. They remind you that you are guided, that you are never alone, that there is a purpose walking beside you even when you cannot see it clearly. When the divine wakes you early, it is sometimes because there is something shifting in your life, something you must prepare for, something you need to release, something you are ready to understand. It is a nudge toward growth, a reminder that your life holds far more depth and meaning than your circumstances may suggest. In those hours, your soul is closest to truth, and the quiet breath of the universe moves through you like a gentle wind, awakening you to a higher awareness that exists beyond fear, beyond doubt, beyond the limitations you've placed upon yourself. Those who listen to this sacred call often find their intuition sharpened, their peace strengthened, and their inner world transformed. The early hours carry a wisdom that cannot be captured in words but can be felt deeply in the heart, a wisdom that invites you to rise, to awaken, and to walk toward the light within you. When you find yourself waking between 3 and 5 a.m., it is not merely the result of a passing disturbance or the mind wandering through unfinished thoughts. It is often a far more profound call from within, a pull from the deeper layers of your consciousness inviting you toward a heightened state of awareness. In those early hours, when the world is wrapped in silence and the noises of daily life have not yet begun, your inner being becomes more receptive, more open, more capable of sensing subtle truths that the mind usually overlooks. It is during this sacred interval that the boundary between your outer self and your inner self becomes thinner, allowing you to feel emotions, insights, and intuitions with a clarity that daytime rarely provides. The stillness of this hour is not an emptiness. It is a powerful field of energy in which the divine voice speaks gently, and the soul begins to stir with a longing to be acknowledged. The awakening you experience is not simply physical. It is your spirit tapping at the door of your awareness, trying to draw you deeper into understanding your own life, your purpose, and the quiet guidance that is constantly flowing towards you. This inner call often comes when you have been moving too quickly, when the demands of life have created a noise so persistent that your deeper self can no longer reach you during the day. The early morning hours become a haven, where your mind is quiet enough to truly hear, and your heart is calm enough to feel. When you wake at this time, you may notice that there is a different quality in the air around you, a softness that feels almost like a presence, and a clarity in your thoughts that seems to arise spontaneously. These moments reveal how connected you are to something far greater than your circumstances, something that is always guiding, always nudging, always encouraging you to return to the center of your being. The quietness outside mirrors the quietness being asked of you within, and in that reflection, your soul finds a doorway through which it can speak. This awakening is often accompanied by a subtle feeling that there is something you need to notice, something unresolved or unnoticed during your waking hours. It might be a thought that wants attention, an emotion that needs to be acknowledged, or a deeper truth that your intuition has been waiting to reveal. In the daytime, your mind often becomes pulled in many directions, weighed down by responsibilities, conversations, distractions, and expectations. But in the early morning, when the world is still asleep, the mind loosens its grip and the deeper layers of consciousness begin to rise. This is why so many people experience sudden clarity at this hour. The mind has stepped aside, and the soul has stepped forward. When this spiritual call comes, it is often because something within you is ready to evolve. You may be entering a season of transformation, releasing an old pattern, or preparing to understand something that was once hidden. The soul knows when you are ready for the next step long before the conscious mind does, and it awakens you during the hours when you are most likely to listen without resistance. The divine uses subtlety, not force, and these moments of early awakening are gentle invitations toward growth. You may not instantly understand what the message is, but the very act of waking is a sign that something is shifting, aligning, and opening within you. In this quiet window of time, your breath becomes deeper, your thoughts slower, and your awareness sharper. Even if you do nothing but lie still, a subtle transformation begins because your attention is no longer scattered. It gathers inward, like a stream returning to its source. You begin to feel the movement of intuition more clearly, like a quiet whisper rising from the depths of your being. You may sense guidance toward peace, toward letting go of something heavy, or toward embracing something you have ignored. This inner communication does not require words. It is felt as an impression, a knowing, a gentle stirring of truth inside you. The spiritual call that awakens you is not meant to alarm you. It is meant to remind you of your own connection to the divine and the vast inner world that lives beneath your daily concerns. It is an invitation to step into awareness, to observe your life from a higher vantage point, and to give attention to the parts of your being that seek healing, clarity, or renewal. When you wake at this hour, it is as though the universe is telling you that this moment belongs to you alone, free from the noise, the demands, and the expectations that shape the rest of your day. It is a gift of silence in which the soul has permission to breathe freely, and in that breathing, you rediscover who you are beneath all distractions. Waking at this sacred time may also be a sign that your intuition is strengthening. You are becoming more sensitive to the subtle movements of energy around you, more aware of the inner guidance that flows continuously but is often unnoticed. As this sensitivity grows, the early hours become a time when insights begin to rise effortlessly, when understanding feels natural, and when you feel closer to the essence of life itself. This awakening is a spiritual call because it is leading you back to your center, inviting you to recognize the quiet wisdom that has always been present within you, waiting for the right moment to be heard. When the mind awakens between 3 and 5 a.m. and feels unusually calm, it is because this window of time naturally carries a unique stillness that quiets the restless layers of thought. In this silence, your inner world shifts into a state where intuition can rise without interference. The mind, usually crowded with noise during the day, becomes clear like a calm lake before sunrise, allowing the reflections of deeper truth to surface. This clarity is not forced. It emerges gently as the mind loosens its hold on worries, responsibilities, and the constant demands of daily life. The early morning hours create a rare atmosphere in which thoughts feel more spacious, emotions more understandable, and insights more noticeable. It becomes a moment when the divine can speak to you in a way that the mind can finally hear, because it is no longer overwhelmed by external distractions. During the busyness of the day, the mind is constantly processing information, responding to interactions, planning what comes next, filtering noise, and navigating countless concerns. This intense mental activity forms layers of tension that prevent you from accessing your deeper intuitive knowing. But in the early hours before sunrise, the world has not yet awakened, and the mind does not feel the pressure to perform. The usual mental chatter grows faint, and in this rare quietness, a different kind of awareness begins to open. You may notice that your thoughts feel slower, gentler, and more focused. Ideas that were tangled the day before feel clearer. Questions that troubled you suddenly seem to unravel. The calmness of the mind at this hour is not accidental. It is a natural state of harmony that arises when the external world and internal world fall into alignment. This is why divine guidance becomes easier to sense. When your mind is calm, you can distinguish between fear and intuition, between worry and inner wisdom, between impulse and truth. Intuition speaks in a subtle, gentle voice, one that is easily drowned out during the day, but in the early, morning silence, that voice gains space to rise. You may feel an inner knowing about what you need to release, what direction you should move toward, or what you must understand about your own life. These insights are not forced. They come with an effortless clarity that feels different from ordinary thinking. They feel deeper, wiser, and more aligned with the core of your being. At this hour, the mind does not argue as much, and the heart does not hide as much, allowing intuition to speak more freely. In this peaceful state, you may feel a connection to something greater, something that seems to guide you with a quiet certainty. You might notice a soft shift in awareness, a sense that you are not alone in your thoughts, a feeling that a higher wisdom is present. The divine often communicates not through dramatic signs but through gentle impressions, sudden clarity, or a softening of the heart. The calm mind allows you to receive these subtle messages with more sensitivity, almost like a radio tuning into a clear frequency after being clouded by static. When the mind is peaceful, it becomes receptive to guidance that normally goes unnoticed. This calmness also reveals truths that you may have been avoiding or unable to face. When the mind is still, it becomes easier to look inward without fear. You may begin to understand patterns in your emotions, motivations behind your actions, or hidden beliefs shaping your behavior. The quiet hour brings a clarity that lets you observe yourself with honesty, compassion, and openness. This inner vision is one of the most powerful forms of guidance because it helps you see what you need to change or embrace in order to align more deeply with your purpose. The peaceful mind also creates space for emotional healing. Feelings that you suppress during the day may rise gently, not to overwhelm you but to be understood. In the early morning calm, you may feel more connected to your heart, more aware of your emotional truth, and more willing to listen to what your spirit is trying to express. Emotional clarity often leads to spiritual clarity, and the two work together to guide you toward a higher understanding. There are moments when this calm awakening feels like a quiet invitation to meditate, pray, or simply breathe deeply. The mind in its peaceful state becomes more willing to surrender, more willing to let go of fear, and more willing to open itself to higher guidance. These early hours are not about effort, they are about allowing your inner world to settle, allowing guidance to surface, allowing your soul to be heard. When the mind is calm, spiritual truths can rise with ease. You begin to sense what is right for your journey, what is aligned with your inner calling, and what actions will bring greater harmony into your life. This clarity is not just spiritual, it influences every part of your life. Decisions become easier to make because they stem from intuition rather than confusion. Relationships become clearer because you can see through the emotional fog. Challenges feel less overwhelming because you can approach them with a centered mind. When the mind awakens in calmness, it offers you a perspective untouched by the chaos of the day. It gives you glimpses of your life as it truly is, beyond fear, beyond doubt, beyond the noise that distracts you from your deeper knowing. This is why guidance feels so strong in the early morning hours. The mind is not pushing, the heart is not hiding, and the soul is not silent. Everything within you aligns quietly, allowing a stream of wisdom to flow effortlessly through your awareness. It is a moment of grace, a moment where the calmness of your mind becomes the doorway through which the divine reaches you, offering clarity, direction, and a deeper connection to the truth that has always lived within you. In the early hours between 3 and 5 a.m., something subtle begins to shift in the atmosphere. The world is wrapped in stillness, and this stillness is not just an absence of sound, it is a thinning of all the layers that normally separate the physical world from the spiritual one. During the day, noise, movement, responsibilities, and human activity create a kind of energetic fog that makes it harder to sense the deeper currents of life. But before dawn, that fog lifts. The air feels different, lighter, more open, as though the veil that usually stands between the seen and unseen becomes almost transparent. It is in this softened space that your spirit becomes more aware, more attuned, and more able to sense the quiet presence of something greater. This is why so many people across cultures, traditions, and centuries have felt that the hours before sunrise carry a sacredness that cannot be fully explained by logic, but can be deeply felt by the heart. At this time, your senses naturally become more subtle. The mind has not yet engaged with the world, and because of this, it does not block your deeper perception the way it often does during the day. You begin to notice things within yourself that you would normally overlook. Thoughts feel clearer, emotions feel more honest, and intuition rises more gently, as though nothing is standing in its way. It is not that the spiritual realm suddenly appears, it is always present, always moving, always guiding. But the early hours create a rare moment when you are finally quiet enough to perceive it, when the usual distractions grow silent, and your inner world becomes sensitive to spiritual presence. This thinning of the veil allows you to feel connected not just to your own thoughts, but to a deeper current of life flowing all around you. You may sense a kind of stillness that feels alive, almost as if the space around you is holding something sacred. You might feel a soft pressure in the heart, a gentle heightening of awareness, or a perception that you are in the presence of something peaceful and wise. These sensations are not random, they are signs that you are touching the border between the material and the spiritual, a border that normally goes unnoticed. In the quiet hours of dawn, this border becomes almost porous, allowing spiritual insight to pass through more freely. Many people report that during these hours, Dreams feel more vivid, intuition feels stronger, and inner messages feel more meaningful. This heightened sensitivity occurs because your consciousness is naturally closer to its deeper layers when you wake during this time. The mental defenses, habits, and layers of resistance you build up throughout the day have not yet formed. It is as though your inner sight is clearer, your inner hearing sharper, and your inner awareness more awake. This is the moment when you can sense what your soul has been trying to communicate, what the divine has been whispering, what your intuition has been nudging you toward. With the veil thinner, these messages do not feel distant or symbolic, they feel present and intimate. When the veil thins, you may also become more aware of unresolved emotions or truths you have been avoiding. This is because the deeper parts of your mind, the ones that hold your unspoken feelings and higher wisdom, come closer to the surface. Without the noise of the day to bury them again, they rise gently, asking to be acknowledged. This is not meant to disturb you, it is meant to heal you. In the silence before dawn, emotional clarity becomes easier, forgiveness becomes more possible, and understanding becomes more natural. The border between your conscious and subconscious weakens, allowing you to see yourself with more honesty, compassion, and insight. This thinning of the veil also enhances your spiritual awareness. You may feel drawn to meditate, pray, or simply sit in stillness. You may sense a gentle presence guiding you from within, or feel as though the air around you is filled with a quiet wisdom. These experiences reflect the openness of your spirit during these hours. When the veil is thin, it becomes easier to remember that life is not limited to what your senses show you. It becomes easier to feel the movement of something subtle, something that supports you, teaches you, and watches over you. Your spirit recognizes this presence instinctively, even if your mind does not fully understand it. At this hour, many people feel an unexplainable comfort, a sense of being watched over or guided. This is because spiritual energy is easier to perceive when the world is still. You may feel more connected to your purpose, more aware of the direction your life needs to take, or more aligned with your inner truth. The thinness of the veil creates a moment when doubt weakens and clarity strengthens, when fear quiets and trust grows. In that sacred silence, you become more aware of your own soul, your own journey, and the deeper meaning behind your experiences. This experience is not limited to those deeply involved in spirituality. Anyone, whether aware, unaware, or even skeptical, can feel the subtle shift. The thinning of the veil is part of the natural rhythm of consciousness, a universal moment when human awareness aligns more closely with spirit. It is a moment that invites you inward, upward, and deeper into yourself. It is a moment of connection, reflection, and awakening. It is a moment when the spiritual world feels closer not because it has moved, but because you have become still enough to sense it. When you find yourself waking between 3 and 5 a.m., it is often a sign that something inside you is shifting, growing, or preparing to rise to the surface. This awakening is not random. It reflects an inner movement that has been building quietly over time. Emotional or spiritual growth rarely happens all at once. It unfolds in layers through moments of clarity, discomfort, reflection, and inner stirring. The early morning hours simply make those movements easier to notice because the noise of the world has not yet returned. Your spirit senses that a deeper transformation is underway, and it uses this silent window to bring your awareness into alignment with what is happening inside you. When you wake at this hour, you are entering a moment where your soul is more open to receiving guidance, understanding past experiences, and releasing what no longer serves your growth. Growth often begins when you are no longer able to remain the same. Something inside you starts to push gently, encouraging you to expand beyond old beliefs, old fears, old patterns of thinking or reacting. During the day, you might distract yourself, postpone dealing with certain feelings, or avoid confronting inner truths. But the quiet hours before dawn remove all excuses. Your inner world becomes clearer, and anything unresolved begins to rise. This rising is not a punishment, it is a sign that you are ready for a deeper level of understanding. Emotional growth requires honesty, and the heart becomes more honest in the stillness. Spiritual growth requires awareness, and the spirit becomes more aware in the silence. When you wake at this time, it is because your inner being knows you are ready to face something that will help you grow, even if you do not yet know what that something is. There are moments in life when change is already unfolding beneath the surface. Before you consciously recognize it, you may feel more sensitive, more thoughtful, more aware of subtle feelings you once ignored. You may sense a quiet urge to reflect on your life, question your direction, or reassess what truly matters to you. These signs of inner expansion often become stronger during the early morning hours because the mind is calm, enough to let deeper insights rise without resistance. What you avoided thinking about during the day becomes easier to understand at dawn. What felt confusing becomes clearer. What felt painful becomes more approachable. Waking at this hour is a sign that your spirit is preparing you for a shift, gently guiding you to look inward without fear. Emotional growth can appear in many ways during this time. You might remember something from your past and see it differently. You might feel the need to forgive someone or release a hurt you have carried for too long. You might realize that you have been holding on to habits or thoughts that drain your energy. These realizations are not meant to overwhelm you. They are part of your healing, part of learning to let go of what no longer belongs in your life. The early morning hours reveal these truths because your heart is softer, your mind quieter, and your spirit more open to acknowledgement. Growth requires space, and the dawn provides that space naturally. Spiritual growth also becomes more active at this hour. You may feel a pull toward something higher, even if you cannot explain it. You may sense that you are being nudged toward a new understanding of yourself or your life. You might feel a deep longing for peace, meaning, or connection. These feelings are not accidental. They are indicators that your inner being is expanding, preparing to embrace a more awakened version of yourself. When you wake at this time, it may be because you are stepping into a new stage of awareness. The spirit speaks in intuition, in quiet emotions, in sudden clarity, in subtle inner movements that only the early morning silence can reveal. There are times when emotional or spiritual growth feels uncomfortable. You may feel restless, reflective, or unusually aware of your inner thoughts. You may sense a tension that you cannot easily describe. This discomfort is not a sign that something is wrong. It is a sign that something is breaking open. Growth often requires releasing old layers of identity, and those layers do not always fall away gently. But waking at this hour gives you the chance to observe these feelings from a place of clarity rather than confusion. You are able to look at yourself without judgment, to see your fears without being controlled by them, and to feel your emotions without being overwhelmed. The dawn creates a space where growth becomes possible, because everything inside you becomes easier to understand. During these early hours, your intuition feels more alive. You may sense that a new direction is calling you, even if you cannot yet see the full path. You may recognize that certain relationships, habits, or environments are no longer aligned with the person you are becoming. You may feel a quiet courage rising within you, a willingness to embrace change rather than fear it. This awakening is a signal that your inner being is preparing you for a new chapter, a new level of awareness, or a deeper connection with your true self. Waking between 3 and 5 a.m. is often a reminder that growth is already happening inside you. It is a moment when your soul reaches forward, calling your attention to the transformation unfolding beneath the surface. Emotional and spiritual growth rarely announces itself loudly. It appears in gentle awakenings, quiet reflections, and inner shifts that become clearer in the stillness of dawn. When you wake between 3 and 5 a.m. and feel a sudden quietness within, it is often because your soul is calling you to release the worries, burdens, and tangled thoughts that have been weighing on you. This hour creates a natural doorway into your inner world, a moment when your consciousness shifts from the noise of the external world to the deeper layers of your being. During the day, you carry responsibilities, conversations, expectations, and unspoken emotions. They accumulate like dust that settles quietly without your noticing. But in the stillness before dawn, the layers begin to lift. The mind softens, the heart opens, and your spirit becomes more willing to let go of what it has been holding on to. This early awakening becomes a gentle reminder that you do not have to carry everything alone, that there is a deeper presence guiding you back into alignment with your higher self. Letting go is not something the mind naturally enjoys. It clings to past experiences, to fears, to what is familiar. Even when something becomes heavy, the mind often convinces you to keep holding it because it is known. But the soul understands when something has reached its limit. The soul knows when a burden is no longer meant to travel with you. When you wake at this sacred hour, it is often because your inner being is nudging you to release something that has quietly drained your energy. Might be a memory that you keep revisiting, a person you are trying to understand or forgive, a situation you have resisted, or a worry that keeps looping in your mind. The stillness of this early hour makes these burdens more visible, not to trouble you but to help you free yourself from them. Reconnecting with your higher self requires space, mental, emotional, and spiritual space. During the day, this space is hard to find. You are caught in movement, conversation, noise, and activity. But in the silence before sunrise, your awareness expands naturally. You begin to feel a loosening within, as if something inside you is preparing to drop what no longer serves you. This process of release is not dramatic. It is subtle and gentle. It may come as a thought that feels lighter, an emotion that feels ready to be understood, or an intuition that tells you it is time to move on from something that has held you back. When you wake at this hour, it is because your inner being is guiding you toward this release. Letting go is a form of healing. It is the moment when you stop resisting what has already changed and begin aligning yourself with what your life is becoming. This hour helps you see the truth of your emotions without the distortions of stress or fear. You may realize that something you have been holding on to out of habit is no longer needed. You may see that a situation you have been trying to control has been asking you to surrender. You may feel that a fear you have lived with is finally ready to dissolve. These realizations come more easily at this time because your awareness is more honest, more open, and more connected to the core of who you are. Reconnecting with your higher self means remembering the part of you that is not easily shaken by the world. It is the part of you that observes rather than reacts, that trusts rather than fears, that understands rather than judges. In the early morning hours, this deeper self becomes more present, more reachable. You may feel a sense of calm rising from within, an inner steadiness that tells you everything is unfolding as it should. This calmness is not a temporary mood, it is the voice of your higher self becoming clearer. You reconnect with this inner wisdom more easily when the world is quiet, when nothing pulls you away from your own inner truth. This reconnection often brings clarity that was hidden during the day. You may begin to understand why a certain event happened, why a particular person entered your life, why you have been feeling restless, or why your spirit has been urging you to change something. Understanding grows naturally when the mind is calm and the heart is open. You begin to see your experiences not as obstacles, but as steps toward becoming more aligned with your purpose. This clarity helps you release what you previously clung to, because you finally understand its role in your growth. At this hour, your emotions soften. The anger that felt sharp during the day becomes less solid. The sadness you resisted becomes easier to sit with. The confusion that clouded your thoughts begins to clear. This emotional softening is a sign that your higher self is rising to the surface. When you reconnect with this deeper part of your being, you no longer see your emotions as threats, you see them as messages. They show you what needs healing, what needs releasing, and what needs understanding. The dawn strengthens this connection because it removes the distractions that usually drown out your inner guidance. Letting go and reconnecting with your higher self also strengthens your intuition. You may feel more certain about what direction you need to take, more confident about the decisions you have been avoiding, or more aware of something within you that is calling for expression. This heightened intuition is a sign that the layers of worry are falling away, giving space for your deeper knowing to emerge. When you wake at this hour, you may sense that your life is guiding you towards something new, something more aligned with your true nature. This sacred awakening offers a moment where you can breathe freely again, where you can release the unnecessary weight you have carried, and where you can remember who you truly are beneath the noise and pressure of life. It is a gentle call to return to your inner truth, to trust your own wisdom, and to reconnect with the higher self that has been waiting for you in the quiet space of dawn. When you find yourself awake between 3 and 5 a.m., the silence surrounding you becomes more than an empty moment. It becomes a vessel through which deeper truths can finally rise. At this hour, the world is hushed, the noise of human activity has faded, and the mind is not yet tangled in the duties and distractions of the coming day. In that rare stillness, the divine whisper becomes clearer. It does not shout, it does not force, it does not demand. It speaks softly, subtly, through impressions, feelings, sudden clarity, or a gentle stirring of intuition. These whispers often go unnoticed during the day because the mind is too crowded, too loud, too busy trying to keep up with the rush of life. But before dawn, when your awareness is naturally more open, the inner voice of guidance can finally be heard. Divine whispers do not always arrive as words. Sometimes they come as a feeling in the heart, a sudden understanding, a moment of peace that feels unexplainable. Sometimes they appear as a memory that surfaces unexpectedly, not to trouble you, but to show you something you have overlooked. Sometimes they are felt as an urge to reflect, to pray, to breathe slowly, or to simply sit in silence. The divine communicates in ways that match the quiet nature of your soul, and the early morning hours create the perfect canvas for this communication. When you wake at this time, it is often because your inner being is attuned to these subtle messages, and the silence allows them to rise unhindered. During the day, you are surrounded by voices, both internal and external. You think, plan, respond, worry, and analyze. Each of these mental movements creates layers of noise. Even when something within tries to guide you, the constant activity of your mind muffles its voice. But at dawn, when the mind is still half resting, those layers soften. You are closer to your intuitive self, closer to your spiritual awareness, closer to the calm that allows truth to surface. The whispers of guidance feel stronger not because they suddenly appear, but because the barriers that usually block them have temporarily dissolved. This quiet form of guidance often knows what you need before you consciously realize it. It may be trying to tell you to let go of something that is hurting you, to forgive a situation you've held on to for too long, or to move forward in a direction you've been afraid to trust. It may be pointing you toward healing, urging you to rest, or reminding you of your worth. It may reveal a truth about a relationship, an opportunity, or a dream you've been ignoring. In the silence of dawn, these messages float to the surface gently, allowing you to see your life with a clarity that daylight rarely brings. Divine whispers also guide you toward understanding your emotions more deeply. When you wake at this hour, you might feel a wave of calmness, or at times, a wave of emotion. Both are forms of guidance. The calmness indicates alignment, a moment when your inner and outer worlds are in harmony. The emotion indicates something seeking release or acknowledgement. In both cases, the divine is gently guiding you inward, helping you understand the truth beneath the surface. This inner exploration is not meant to overwhelm you, it is meant to free you. The guidance that rises in the early morning hours appears because you are finally still enough to listen. At this time, your intuition is heightened. You may find that your thoughts seem clearer, your awareness sharper, your heart more open. Problems that felt complicated the day before may suddenly seem simpler. Decisions that felt heavy may feel lighter. Questions that once troubled you may reveal their answers without effort. This is the power of quiet guidance. It brings clarity not through force, but through stillness. In this state, the divine touches your awareness gently, helping you see what you could not see when your mind was busy or overwhelmed. This hour often brings insights about your purpose or direction in life. You may feel drawn towards something new, something meaningful, something aligned with your inner truth. You might suddenly recognize a path you've been avoiding, or a dream you've kept buried. The divine whispers at dawn to remind you that your life is not random, that your experiences are not meaningless, and that your soul is always guiding you towards something greater. These whispers become easier to sense because, in the early morning, your spirit is closer to the surface, unobstructed by the weight of daily concerns. The guidance you receive at this hour is also protective. It may warn you of something you need to be cautious about, or bring awareness to a choice that requires thoughtfulness. It may draw your attention to something you overlooked, or remind you to trust your instincts when you have been doubting them. The divine does not interfere harshly, it nudges gently, helping you navigate your life with greater wisdom and clarity. Often, when you wake between 3 and 5 a.m., you feel a presence, not necessarily something seen or heard, but something sensed. It feels like comfort, like understanding, like support. It is subtle but unmistakable. This presence reminds you that you are not alone, that there is a guiding force walking with you, watching over you, and speaking to you in ways your spirit can understand. In the silence of dawn, this presence becomes more tangible because your awareness is receptive. The whispers you hear in these early hours are invitations to connect with your deeper self, to trust the flow of your life, and to embrace the truth that is trying to reveal itself. They are gentle reminders that your journey is guided, that your steps have meaning, and that the quiet wisdom within you is always reaching out, waiting for the moment when you are still enough to listen. When the early hours of the morning begin to unfold, something subtle yet powerful moves through the air, carrying with it a sense of quiet expectancy that your spirit can feel long before your mind understands it. These are the hours when the world is hushed, when distractions retreat, and when you find yourself awakening with a sense that something is stirring within you. In this silence, a deeper purpose emerges, guiding you toward a new beginning or a profound inner shift that is waiting to take shape in your life. Many people wake at this time without realizing that what they are experiencing is not just a random interruption of sleep, but an opening, or a space in which their soul prepares to embrace a new direction. When you rise from your bed or lie awake staring into the dimness of the room, there is a reason you feel drawn inward, as though something is urging you to pay attention to changes that are unfolding quietly beneath the surface of your awareness. As you lie there, your mind may feel clearer than usual, stripped of the noise of the day that often clouds perception. This clarity is not accidental. It is the natural way the inner world makes room for insight. You may feel thoughts coming from a deeper place, or emotions rising that you hadn't fully noticed before. Often these hours reveal truths that daytime living pushes aside, because when the world sleeps, your intuition awakens with greater strength. This is the time when you sense new possibilities, when you feel the gentle pull of directions not yet taken, and when you begin to understand that something in your life is preparing to shift gently but powerfully. Transformation rarely arrives loudly. It begins in these quiet moments when you feel something within you aligning itself with a new chapter that is ready to form. In these hours, the atmosphere around you feels lighter and your inner space feels more open. It is as though your soul recognizes that this is the moment to prepare, to gather strength, and to receive clarity for what is coming next. You may find yourself reflecting on choices, relationships, or habits that no longer serve you, not because you are forcing yourself to think about them, but because the early morning energy naturally brings them to the surface. This is a sign that the old is loosening its grip, and the new is quietly making its presence known. You begin to notice subtle shifts, an insight about your path, a realization about your worth, a deeper acceptance of something you've been resisting. All of this is part of the preparation for a transition that will unfold gradually in your waking life. As these thoughts arise, you may feel a sense of empowerment or even relief, because the inner world is guiding you toward a deeper understanding of what you need to release. This awakening is not meant to overwhelm you, it is meant to strengthen you. It invites you to let go of patterns that drain your energy, of fears that have held you back, and of doubts that silence your inner voice. In the stillness of early dawn, you see more clearly who you are becoming, and you recognize that this new beginning doesn't require force, only awareness. You start to feel more connected with your inner self, more aware of your purpose, and more aligned with the direction that life is calling you toward. You may notice that your emotions feel more honest and unfiltered at this hour. Feelings you ignored during the day become easier to acknowledge. This emotional clarity is part of the transformation taking shape, because it prepares your heart for what is ahead. Change always begins internally before it shows itself externally, and these early morning awakenings are part of that inner preparation. You are being guided to understand yourself in a deeper way so that you can make space for new opportunities, new strengths, and new perspectives to enter your life. Sometimes you may feel a quiet excitement, even if you do not know exactly what is coming. Other times there may be a gentle unease, the kind that comes when you sense that growth is approaching. Both feelings are signs of transformation. They indicate that your spirit knows something is shifting, even if your mind cannot yet identify the details. These hours are like the first light before dawn, not yet revealing the full landscape but signaling that illumination is on its way. As this inner work takes place, your intuition becomes sharper, your awareness deepens, and your connection to your own truth strengthens. You begin to trust that the path ahead is forming with purpose, even if it remains partially hidden. In these moments you feel more open to guidance, more ready to embrace change, and more willing to step into the version of yourself that has been quietly waiting beneath old layers. The early morning awakening becomes a kind of spiritual preparation, a rehearsal for the new reality that is slowly unfolding. You are being readied for new beginnings, not with noise or urgency, but with the gentle clarity that comes from silence. These hours help you gather insight, courage, and calmness so that when the changes appear in your daily life, you are already aligned with them internally.